Pag sinabi pong DRRMCCA, yan po yun, ha? So, Disaster Risk Reduction and Management at Climate Change Adaptation. Para hindi na po kami mabubulol pa doon sa term na yan. So, papakilala po natin, of course, hindi na po kailangan ng introduction yung next candidate po, si Miriam Defensor Santiago. Pero allow me to read something from her bio just so that we are reminded of her stellar career. Actually, marami po yung binigay po ng camp ni Miriam Defensor Santiago. So, allow me to summarize. No? We know that Senator Miriam Defensor Santiago graduated from this university. She has a Doctor of this is a tongue twister, Juridical Science in the U.S. She, of course, graduated from Michigan, I believe. And she is the first Asian from a developing country to be elected to the United Nations as the judge of the International Criminal Court. I believe that's in The Hague.
Yes.
We all know that Senator Miriam Defensor Santiago has had a long career not only in the judiciary or the judicial branch, but also in the legislative and executive branch. She used to be, I think, in the Customs Department, and also she used to be a secretary, a cabinet rank secretary, and of course she ran for president back in 1992. But did you know that Miriam Defensor Santiago, aside from having a stellar career in government, also had a career in the United Nations? She's been everywhere, no? I can tell you, like, she's been in the University of Michigan, as I said earlier, and she has a Master of Arts in Religious Studies at Mary Hill School of Theology. She also finished her Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Laws, cum laude from the UP, and she had a near perfect average grade of 1.1. Para sa mga UP students dito, o yung mga nag-aaral po dito, imposible po yun. Trust me, I know.
Grabe.
At the same time, she studied and worked and did her postdoctoral studies in Oxford, in Cambridge, and Harvard. The list goes on and on. But probably what we all know, Senator Miriam Defensor Santiago, is about her feisty, her no-holds-barred attitude to stamp out corruption, to address the ills of the country, and to battle evil both good and near and far pala. And of course, the latest battle that she's won is her battle with cancer. So she actually was diagnosed stage 4 last year. And today, she's still here with us. I mean, she's here, she's alive and kicking. Unfortunately, she's not here with us today, but we welcome her thoughts. We always like to listen to her ideas, and of course, her wit, no? So, Steph, maybe you can introduce, no, sino yung representative ni Senator Miriam Defensor Santiago sa araw na ito?
Thank you, Zach. Okay. So representing Senator Miriam Defensor Santiago today is her sister. So nito po yung kapatid niya, former Higher Education Commissioner Nenelyn Defensor. She was also a graduate studies professor of education management at the University of Philippines. Dito nga po. So marami po siyang degrees, Doctor of Education, major in Education Management, tapos meron din po siyang Masters of Arts, major in Guidance and Counseling from the Ateneo de Manila University, and Master in National Security Administration from the National Defense College of the Philippines, where she graduated with honors. Like her sister, Dr. Defensor was granted postgraduate scholarships in several countries, like Australia, Japan, China, the US, and the UK. So as CHED Commissioner, Dr. Defensor was chairman of the Board of Regents or Board of Trustees of some 60 state universities and colleges. For her achievements, Dr. Defensor has received numerous citations, including the Outstanding Alumni of the Century Award for Education from her alma mater, the West Visayas State University. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all please welcome Dr. Nenelyn Defensor. Magandang hapon po, Dr. Nenelyn Defensor. Okay, so we have with us the sister of one of our presidentiables.
If I may ask po, ma'am, you come from a family of achievers, I think,
Yes.
based on your track record. How was it growing up with Senator Santiago, and of course, in your family po, from a family of achievers? I know your brother is also a general, former general, tama po ba?
Actually, let me start with a joke. There are only 3 underachievers here in the Philippines. My ate, Senator Miriam, my kuya, General Defensor, and me. We consider ourselves underachievers because we have two other siblings abroad. They are the achievers.
I see.
My sibling, who is a doctor of medicine, works at Cedar Sinai Medical Center. That's the medical center of in Beverly Hills. So you can see patients there like Michael Jackson.
Wow. Okay.
So ano po yung chika kay... No, I'm just kidding.
And my other sister, she's in Europe. She's a lawyer also, and she married a German nuclear physicist.
Nuclear physicist.
So actually here in the Philippines, we are the underachievers.
Okay.
Para sa
If
akin
that's
po,
the
actually-
underachiever, I can't imagine how
Yeah.
their siblings are abroad, no?
Hindi nga po, Doctor, para sa akin po, dahil nandito po kayo sa Pilipinas, kayo po yung main na, ako, tinitingil ako po na nandito po kayo sa Pilipinas despite all of your achievements that you've decided to stay here.
Yeah, of course, of course. And of course, my two other sisters, they love the Philippines very much.
Sure.
They keep coming back here. In fact, every year, if only their husbands will allow them. So it's a big quarrel because they said, you love the Philippines more than you love the country, so adopt you.
I see. Well, ma'am, I'm sure you're very excited to talk about your sister's perspectives. No, she has very unique perspectives on our country's development, where we're going. But we're here to talk specifically about DRRMCCA. Nalala niyo po yun, DRRMCCA. And we want to know po, ano po yung kanyang pananaw doon sa current situation po natin. We are visited by 20 typhoons every year. We are one of the most vulnerable countries to climate change. So please share with us, ma'am. Maybe you can also add your own thoughts about the country's situation of DRRM and climate change.
Okay, so I think the first thing I will share is the topic. How would you describe the current disaster and climate situation of the country? But I understand a short while ago you were already given a briefer. But let me share some more thoughts, if that's okay with the audience. So let me describe the disaster situation first. The Philippines is tagged as one of the most disaster-prone countries in the world. Most of these disasters had been caused by extreme natural hazards and in some cases, human-induced hazards. I don't know if the audience has heard of the World Risk Index. There is a World Risk Index developed by the United Nations University. And every year, they rank the countries according to disaster index and according to vulnerability. And for 2014, in their latest ranking, the Philippines came in second as the most at risk when it comes to disaster, and it came in third as the most vulnerable out of 171 countries in the world. Muntik na tayo nag-first prize. So, it is a very, very big concern for the Filipinos, not only for Senator, but for all of us who are gathered here this afternoon. This means the Philippines is among the countries that are most exposed to natural hazards and whose citizens are most likely to suffer from harm, loss, and disruption in an extreme event or natural hazard. And this is the sad news. It also means the Philippines lacks the ability to minimize the adverse impacts of extreme natural events. And the Philippines, furthermore, was described as having weak long-term strategies to address these concerns. So ganun kabigat ang problema ng Pilipinas. Now, let me talk in terms of climate change. the Philippines belongs to the list of non-Annex 1 countries under the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, or UNFCCC. Non-Annex 1 countries are those developing countries recognized by the UNFCCC as especially vulnerable to the adverse impacts of climate change, including countries with low-lying coastal areas and those prone to desertification and drought. The convention emphasizes activities that promise to answer the special needs and concerns of these vulnerable countries, such as investment, insurance, and technology transfer. So, ganun po kabigat ang sitwasyon natin ngayon. Now, I think I can see that the audience is composed of people from all sectors. Who are the most affected? Who are the groups most affected and why? The groups most at risk during disasters in the Philippines are number one, the women and girls. So, tayong dalawa yun, included tayo dyan. The children and youth. You know, children are helpless, hindi pa mature ang kanilang judgment. Older persons, persons with disabilities, indigenous peoples, the urban poor, and emergency responders. You can see that we create a host of problems because we cannot attend to the needs of all these people. And considering that the Philippines is really disaster prone, for example, this year alone, the Philippines has been hit by 9 major typhoons and tropical storms. And it is under alert status for volcanic eruption and impacts of intertropical convergence zones. So siguro ang most popular typhoon, popular or notorious typhoon in recent years, which claimed the lives of 6,300 people and resulted in 89.6 billion in damages, was of course Typhoon Yolanda. Hindi ko alam, sa audience ba, mayroon dito sa inyo na galing sa Typhoon Yolanda hit areas? Meron ba po?
Meron po tayo.
Yan po,
Ayun.
dito po, sa right side. Taas po kamay, please.
Taas natin. O
Okay.
yun, nandoon. So, sirs and moms, I really empathize with you. I will not say sympathize. I say empathize. Kasi ako po, nung inundoy ang Metro Manila, yung bahay ko pinasok. Talagang nagpanik din ako kasi hindi ko alam kung aanhin ko. I had to go to the second floor. So, yun po. Typhoon Yolanda placed the country at the center of international aid efforts and scrutiny by highlighting the structural deficiencies of the Philippine disaster risk reduction and management system. Nabalita tayo doon sa international media na ang response natin hindi ganon kabilis. And until now, international media still highlights this fact. In fact, nung nag-anniversary ang Yolanda, we were still featured in CNN, BBC, nandoon po tayo. So,
Okay po.
yun po.
So yan. So talagang grave and ano ba, sad, no? Yung situation natin sa Pilipinas. So sige po, so yun po yung situationer. Siguro pupunta naman po tayo sa medyo mas personal kay Senadoria Miriam Defensor. Nothing about, you know, personal in the sense that yung mga nagawa na po niyang mga batas. So si Senadora po ang naghain ng Senate Bill 2446. Ito po yung Children's Emergency Relief and Protection Act sa Senado. Kung may isa sa batas po ito, paano po ba ito matutugunan ang mga hamon ng disaster risk reduction management, disaster risk reduction and management and climate change adaptation sa hinaharap ng mga vulnerable or pinaka-nanganganib na sektor ng lipunan?
Unang-una, before I go to that point, pwede ba ipaliwanag ko kung bakit final ito ni
Sige po.
Senator Miriam?
Yes.
Okay. In November 2014, isang taon after Yolanda hit our country, Senator Miriam filed Senate Bill number 2446. The complete title of this bill is Children's Emergency Relief and Protection Act. Itong panukalang ito was the result of consultations conducted by the group Save the Children. Sino ba dito sa audience ang member ng Save the Children?
Ayan po,
Ayun
nandyan
po.
sa likod.
Di ba po kayo ang nag-conduct ng consultations? As a result of the consultations of Save the Children, ang consultation population ng Save the Children were, number 1, children, good, non-government agencies, local government officials, and community leaders in Iloilo and Leyte. They wanted to know more about their experiences and suggestions on how disaster risk reduction and response to them could be improved. And one of the suggestions of Save the Children, we need a bill just to address the needs of children in emergency situations. Wala pong batas na ganito. Ngayon, baka you might think, pero ang dami-dami ng batas na tungkol sa kababaihan, tungkol sa mga bata, do we need another law? According to Senator Miriam, yes, we need a specific law just for emergencies which aims to provide children with protection during a state of calamity. Okay? Thus, she feels there is a need for new strengthened national legislation to improve the care and protection of children affected by disasters. So ito po ang background kung bakit nag-file siya. What are the salient features of the bill? Ito na po. Ano ang nakakaiba dito sa bill niya compared sa mga bill in general for children and for women? May I just cite the salient features of the bill? I will try my best to translate it in Filipino. Okay. Number 1, heightened measures against child trafficking and other violence against children in the aftermath of disasters and calamities. Anong ibig sabihin nito? Alam nyo, ang mga bata, posible na mawawalan ng hindi lang isang magulang, minsan dalawa pa. Ngayon, kung wala na silang both parents, what will happen to them? It's possible they will get trafficked. Yeah. Pwede na damputin na lang sila kung sinong gusto bumenta sa kanila or to take advantage of them. Or it's possible, itong mga children, they suffer shock, they are traumatized, they cannot recall who are their parents. So, ang panukala na ito, nagsasabi na proteksyonan kaagad ang mga bata. Number 2, this bill will put a system in place of restoring civil documents for children and their families to better access services and protect against exploitation. Dahil abogada si Senator Miriam, naisipan niya, kung magiging orphan ito ang mga bata na ito, saan ang mga dokumento nila identifying them? Civil documents will be in place. 3, sabi ni Senator Miriam, ang mga bata din should have increased participation in disaster risk reduction planning and post-disaster needs assessment. 4, gusto rin ni Senator Miriam that there should be budget allocation for this particular program implementation. Another thing is the formulation of a comprehensive emergency program to protect children and their immediate recovery, improved care and steps for family tracing and reunification for unaccompanied and separated children. Magpo-provide din ang bill ng family reunification. I-mandate ang government na hanapin sino ba ang mga kamag-anak o buhay pa ba ang magulang ng mga bata na ito. There will be child-centered training of all responders for community and barangay leaders, school personnel, and rescuers. There will also be timely delivery of services for pregnant and lactating mothers. Ang kawawa pag may disaster, kung ang isang babae buntis, oh my goodness, basta pinabayaan na lang siya, hindi mga anak ka dyan. And less disruption of education activities with the reduced use of schools as evacuation centers. Ang kagandahan nitong bill, ang suporta na pinapakita ng mamamayan ay marami. For example, various sangguniang panlalawigan from Bulacan, South Cotabato, Capiz, Leyte, and Iloilo approved some 30 resolutions from the sanggunian expressing their support to the passage of Senator Miriam's bill. Ganun karami ang nagsabi na susuportahan nila, nagandahan sila.
Dito po, let's see. Who thinks here, please raise your hand kung dapat po ipasa yung bill na ito. Special protection for children and women during disasters.
And emergencies.
Please raise your hand. Sa tingin niyo po ay dapat ipasa kasi ito sa 16th or sa next Congress, sa 17th Congress. O yan po. So,
Kasama ako dyan.
kasama din po ako kahit hindi po
Oo,
ako woman
women
or
and
child.
children. Opo, kasi talagang importante, no? Nakikita natin na ibang klaseng vulnerability din. Not that, basta, kailangan genderized,
Particularly
no?
vulnerable po yung mga bata,
Particularly
diba? At saka yung mga kababayan.
And
Sige po.
another good news, in January 2015, the House of Representatives unanimously passed their Children in Emergencies bill with almost 80 congressmen as co-authors. In the Senate, aside from Senator Miriam, 6 other senators have filed their own versions of the bill. Senator Miriam says that after they finish the deliberations on the 2016 budget, Senator Pia Cayetano, Chair of the Committee on Women, Children, Family Relations, and Gender Equality, will sponsor Senator Miriam's committee report on the bill. She said, Senator Miriam says, and I quote, "I shall appeal to all my colleagues in the Senate to pass the Children in Emergencies bill into law before the Christmas break, so we can better prepare and respond to disasters and protect the needs of children before, during, and after disasters."
Mabuti po yan.
Okay, so before the Christmas break,
Yes.
bago po matapos po yung
Sana po
2016.
may
So
batas
sana
na
pa,
tayo
no?
tungkol doon.
Okay, okay.
And that's just a few more days
That's just
bago
a few
matapos
days. That's
ang
true, kasi-
Christmas recess ng Congress.
Tama, tama. Okay. Pero naisip ko lang po, no, kasi syempre bilang senator, kasi yun yung mga ginagawa niya, no? Pass the bills. But as president, of course, iba po kasi yung magagawa niya bilang presidente, tapos iba pa din yung function bilang isang legislator. So, as president, ano po ba yung nakikita niyo po? Kasi kasama po kayo na bilang staff po, no, ng kapatid niyo. Ano po kaya yung mga nagagawa ba ng mga presidente sa mga ganitong klaseng batas? Ano po yung na-imagine nyo? I mean, why is it important for her to be president and to pass these?
Ganito po yun.
Sige po.
Oh, wow. That's the question I wanted to hear.
Okay, sige po. Buti
Yun po
naman.
ang tanong na gustong-gusto ko. Alam mo, there are 3 branches of government. I think for those of you na
Sige, so 3 branches, no?
who are familiar, we have, first of all, the executive branch.
Opo.
Then we have the legislative branch. And we have the judicial branch. Siguro si Senator Santiago lang ang kaisa-isang candidate for president who served in all three branches of government. So gamay na gamay niya how each branch functions. Right now, in the Senate, she belongs to the legislative branch. Ang legislative, magle-legislate lang, di
Gagawa
ba?
sila ng
Gagawa
batas.
lang sila ng batas.
Opo.
Hanggang dyan ang kanilang katungkulan. They do not implement the law. It is important that somebody has to implement it. And when you implement the law, you should have the guts. You should have the political will. You should stand up for your principle. Sa tingin ko naman si Senator Miriam may ganito. Kaya hindi pwede na legislate ka lang ng legislate. Hindi ka pwede mag-implement because the executive implements.
Ano
Yun ang ating talakayin. What is the role of the executive? At nakita natin, pag wala kang political will, hindi talaga ma-implement yun kasi maraming nagbubulong sa left ear mo, maraming nagbubulong sa right ear mo. Paano ka maka-implement ng tama? Ngayon, kailangan ang leader decisive siya. Pag sinabi niya yung itong gusto niya, kailangan mapasunod niya ang lahat na sektor. Oh, let us do this. This is how we do it. We have sufficient laws. Ang dami-dami na nating batas. But our implementation of the laws is very weak. Oo, yun ang kulang dito sa Philippines, political will.
So you're saying po that Senator Santiago can provide this political will and make decisions that need to be made?
Sa tingin ko, sa tapang niya ba naman yan? And then I already pointed out that she served all three branches of government, kaya hindi mo siya mapapaikot.
Ano po yung experience ni Senator Miriam sa executive branch?
Okay, in the executive branch of government, she served as Secretary of the Department of Agrarian Reform. She was Commissioner of Immigration. So, she held cabinet positions. That's executive. In the judiciary, nakita nyo naman, 10 years siya. She was a regional trial court judge in Quezon City for 10 years. And in fact, her greatest achievement in the judiciary was that she was elected to the International Criminal Court. So, na malaking karangalan para sa isang developing country to be elected kasi ang nag-elect sa kanya hindi basta-basta na mga tao, talagang they are in the highest post of the judiciary. And of course, we have the executive, the judiciary, legislative, senator siya. So, yun naman, sa tingin ko, makatulong naman po siya.
Baka overqualified. Punta naman po tayo sa ma'am, sa climate change. Sa inyo palagay po, ano po yung connection o yung link or may epekto ba yung climate change o yung pagbabago po ng klima doon sa disaster, sa pagwawasak po ng kalikasan po natin? Ano yung factors that affect our environment? And what can Senator Defensor Santiago would like to do? What can she do as President to mitigate or adapt to the challenges of climate change?
You know, when you say, is there a link between climate change as a factor to the disasters, it is non-debatable. Lahat ng scientists nagsabi na talagang the link between climate change and disasters nandoon, kitang-kita nila. For example, when we say na climate change, nakikita nyo naman, nag-iiba na ngayon ang klima. Unpredictable na ngayon ang climate. And of course, there are 1,001 reasons which I should not enumerate anymore while there is climate change. For example, one of the obvious reasons is global warming. It might be caused by many scientific explanations, but it can also be caused by human frailties. For example, tayo din ang nagkakos ng global warming na yan kasi our use of itong mga gases for fuel, it contributes to global warming. So 1,001 reasons kung bakit may climate change. And of course, lahat na scientists nagsabi sa atin na ang climate change causes in turn natural disasters. Dahil nag-global warming, ang nangyayari dyan, typhoons become more, fierce. Ang isang dyaryo kahapon, ang tawag nila na statement doon, typhoons are fiercer. If there is such an English. Mas
malakas
daw,
po yung
mas
mga
malakas,
bagyo
mas
natin.
matindi, so, sa ganung pa lang, talagang the connect between climate change and disasters is very obvious. So ngayon, ano ang gagawin natin? Alright? Hindi na ako magsasabi ng aking personal opinion because sa dami kong pinag-aralan, I am not in the natural science field. Mas maganda pa kung I will cite official studies. So for example, there is a UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, or UNFCCC. And within this convention, a loss and damage mechanism was established during the 19th Conference of Parties of the UNFCCC to address loss and damage associated with impacts of climate change. This includes loss and damage from extreme events in developing countries that are particularly vulnerable. According to Senator Miriam, she will guarantee a positive outcome for the loss and damage negotiations. She will go into negotiations with other countries for loss and damage, which can improve the availability of risk financing sources for hydrometeorological disasters that are proven to be adversely affected by the impacts of climate change. According to her, if she becomes president, she will ensure the proper implementation of RA number 9729, also known as the Climate Change Act of 2009, which in fact, she was the co-author. Hindi nyo lang alam, co-author siya nitong batas na ito. The law created the Climate Change Commission, tasked to coordinate, monitor, and evaluate the programs and action plans of the government relating to climate change. Senator Miriam also says she will focus on implementing climate change adaptation as opposed to climate change mitigation. If properly executed, RA number 10174, which amended RA number 9729 by creating the People's Survival Fund, will help stakeholders adjust to actual or expected changes in their effects. So itong mga panukalang batas na na-co-author ni Senator Miriam, nakasaad dito na there will be a People's Survival Fund. It is notable that the PSF can be used as a guarantee for risk insurance of farmers, agricultural workers, and other stakeholders.
Naku, maganda po yung nabanggit niyo po, no, yung Climate Change Commission. Galing po kasi ako doon. Kay Commissioner Sanyo. At nabanggit niyo po kasi na yung mga negotiations na nagaganap po sa UNFCCC actually, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So ipasok ko na lang po siguro kasi marami po tayong kasama dito na talagang nag-a-advocate at nagpa-pressure po sa government natin to really have solid, firm stands when it comes to loss and damage. So binanggit niyo na po kasi yan. So sana bilang senator, habang ngayon pa lang po, kasi meron pa tayong Paris sa Paris po this December, there will be another conference of
Yes.
parties. So sana po hindi lang po ito magiging sagot dito po no sa forum, but for her to really make a sense. Kasi yung negotiations po ma'am, 1990s pa, yung sa Kyoto Protocol, matagal na po kasi talaga itong usapin, no? Itong negotiations at napakahirap po talaga.
Correct.
So, sana po
Napakahirap.
talagang makita po natin si Senator Miriam na magiging mas active dito po sa usaping na negotiations sa ibang bansa. Kasi hindi po nila tayo pinapakinggan eh.
Gusto ko lang explain sa audience bakit napakahirap. Gusto ko lang, based lang on what I read. As I told you, I am not a scientist. But I read and read. Like my brothers and sisters, we are fond of reading everything. Ayon sa basa ko, hanggang ngayon, ang mga powerful countries like the United States and mayroon pang mga powerful countries, ayaw nila permahan ang tinatawag natin na is that the Kyoto
Ayaw po nilang pirmahan, ayaw po nilang gumawa ng commitments
commitment na
decrease ng carbon emissions po nila.
To decrease their
Carbon emissions.
carbon emissions kasi sila ang number one na guilty party. Kaya ayaw sila mag-cooperate.
Ayun nga po. So, mahirap po talaga at hindi po parang masasabi natin na parang madalian lang po no, yung negotiations. Mahaba-haba po talaga siya. At sana mas mabigyan po ng strength, power, and authority yung government through the Climate Change Commission. So yun po. So, natutuwa lang po ako doon. At sana talagang I will hold
Of course,
your
of course,
office accountable.
Take note of
Ginamit
that.
ko na to eh.
Kung-
Diba nandito po tayo eh. Opo.
Kung alam ko yun, syempre alam niya yun.
Oho,
And
yun nga
it's
po.
very difficult kasi sila ang number one na with the highest carbon emissions. Actually, kung tutuusin, ang Philippines has one of the lowest kasi maliit lang tayo na bansa.
Emitter, opo.
Parang less than 1% po
Ayaw
tayo,
nila
actually.
kasi gusto nila pag winter, nag-heater kasi sila eh. And then they are industrialized nations. So ang kanilang konsumo ng energy for their industries napakalaki. Napakalaki din ng carbon emissions nila.
Opo.
Ayaw nila
Industrial emissions
ayaw
po
nila
talaga.
mag-commit. And then tayo na mga maliliit na bansa, tayo ang nagko-commit. Tama ba 'yan? Anong sa palagay niyo?
Nako ma'am, sana ma-fortify din po natin yung PSF na sinasabi niyong People's Survival Fund Law na ipasa noong 2012.
Okay.
Hanggang ngayon po kasi medyo mabagal pa po yung implementing rules and regulations niya. Napasa na po siya pero wala pa po talagang budget, ganyan. So sana nandito po kasi tayo no at alam ko po na maraming mga galing sa batayang sektor dito ay talagang naghihintay. Meron pala tayong 1 billion fund. Ito nga po sa PSF. So sana magamit po natin itong ginamit ko na yung opportunity talagang kasi binanggit niyo po ma'am eh.
No, that is what the senator is
Okay po.
proposing and
That's great.
of course if she becomes president, she will push for this. Kasi
Maybe even lead the
Let's-
negotiations, no?
Oo. Kami na po nag-negotiate sa inyo pala po.
So ganun po ang sitwasyon natin. And what is the worst part is the developed countries who are powerful refuse to commit, but the effects of climate change ang nagsasuffer the most are the developing countries like the Philippines. It is so unfair.
Opo,
Very,
opo.
very unfair.
Binanggit niyo rin po, Doktor, na marami pong mga iba't ibang galing sa batayang sektor, katulad nga po ng persons with disabilities na talagang vulnerable dito nga po sa climate change. So ito pong susunod na tanong natin ay manggagaling po sa ating kababayan. Humingi po kasi kami ng tanong mula sa iba't ibang sektor ng lipunan. At ito pong video ay mula sa sektor ng persons with disabilities. So panoorin po natin.
Magandang araw po sa lahat ng mga presidential candidates at sa lahat ng mga manunood. I am Armando A. Amancio, a a persons with disability. I am the President of Kakayahan ng May Kapansanan Foundation Incorporated. Sir and Madam, this is my question. If you become the next President of the country, how can you address the problem of persons with disabilities in disaster risk reduction management? Because as far as the sector is concerned, during the RRM plan formulation of the government, persons with disabilities are excluded and not consulted, resulting in decreased resilience due to the lack of participation and representation of persons with disabilities in the RRM processes and programs.
Okay,
Okay.
so yan yung tanong pa, ma'am.
Okay. Senator Miriam has only one reply. She said, if she becomes president, she will make a disability inclusive disaster risk reduction and management plan. And she proposes 5 steps in order that this plan will materialize. Step number 1, she said, as of 2010, step number 1, she will hold a consultative dialogue with all PWDs. As of 2010, there were over 1.4 million persons with disability in the Philippines. According to a 2013 survey by the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, among persons with disabilities, if a disaster occurs, 80% said, among the survey respondents, 80% said they would be unable to evacuate immediately without difficulty, while 6% said they would not be able to evacuate at all. These numbers drive home the point that PWDs should be part of the whole DRRM process, from planning down to the implementation stages in all levels of the DRRM councils and offices. So yun po ang first step na gagawin niya for the PWDs. Consultative dialogue. Number 2. Step 2, she will include the National Commission on Disability Affairs in the NDRRMC. As of the present, PWDs do not have an official representative at the NDRRMC, which makes it difficult for them to formally advocate their interests and needs in government DRRM protocols. As part of the NDRRMC, the NCDA can ensure that the Magna Carta for Disabled Persons, RA 9442, is integrated in the NDRRMC's decision-making. Step 3, according to Senator Miriam, there should be at least one PWD representative in each local disaster risk reduction and management council. This is to ensure that they can formally participate in the decision-making and budgeting process for DRRM at the local level. PWDs can then make sure that their concerns are reflected in the local DRRM plan and utilization of the local DRRM fund. And number 4, she will integrate PWD concerns in DRRM materials for both the use of community and responders. For PWDs in the community, she will create preparedness guidelines that are specially made for the different sectors of PWDs. Also, DRRM website materials should be in this format, .html format, so that it can be accessed by PWDs, particularly blind persons. And for responders' use, She would like to cite that during typhoons Sendong and Yolanda, 80% of PWDs did not receive appropriate interventions from concerned government agencies because the responders did not know how to respond to PWD needs. She will mandate a training of responders on how to interact with PWDs in search and rescue operations. These guidelines, she feels, should be integrated in a basic instructor's manual to be drafted by the NDRRMC and cascaded to the LGUs through the ILG. Women with disabilities are a particularly vulnerable group whose needs should be included at all stages of recovery and reconstruction efforts. Number 5, she suggests that as first responders, LGUs must build and develop the capacity of family members of PWDs to respond to the differentiated needs of PWDs before and during emergencies. Number 6, she also wants to create PWD databases in every local government unit with a priority on high-risk areas as identified in a hazard mapping of every community. And lastly, she wants to ensure access to government services before, during, and after disasters. She wants to make emergency shelters accessible for those with mobility problems. This will also ensure that relief efforts should reach the PWDs. In essence, she says, we must be guided by the study of the United Nations that said that rehabilitation and reconstructing efforts must not only be inclusive and responsive to the needs of all people, including persons with disabilities, but should include the participation of persons with disabilities to ensure their needs and rights are respected. That is her position.
And
Maraming salamat po.
Hindi po to imagined problem. This is a real problem, lalo
Very
na
real
po nung
problem.
Typhoon Yolanda, na maraming mga PWDs, especially the members of the deaf and blind community that,
yes.
like you said, ma'am, were not able to evacuate or were not given advanced
Yeah.
warning, no? Bago dumating yung bagyo.
Yes. And of course, we have to admit, our responders are not trained to do those
Tama po yun.
things. So, ang
Opo.
sabi ni Senator Miriam, if she becomes president, she will require a training. What do you do?
Actually, kahit nga po yung mga local disaster risk management councils, sila din po, hindi po sila binibigyan ng
Right.
sapat na pondo or training. So kahit po kung pupunta rin po kayo sa mga local offices, hindi rin po talaga ganun ka, I guess, qualified
Ang mga trainers.
magbigay ng appropriate response. Sunod po namin yun at I'm sure na lahat po tayo talagang hihintayin po natin kung sakaling maging Pangulo si Senator Miriam, sana po talaga na ma-push niya po itong mga PWD inclusive na
Hayaan niyo,
programa.
ibulong ko sa kanya. Ma'am, sinabi mo.
Talagang yun na po, nandito. Okay.
Ganito.
Wag natin hayaan po na yung PWD community lang yung mag-push for this, no?
Yes.
The ones who are able should also push
Right.
for greater access and care for the PWDs, no? Especially during disasters. Ang susunod po na tanong ay manggagaling po sa hanay po ng mga kababaihan. So I'd like to, nais ko pong tawagin si Miss Algina Lacaba, na kasama po namin si Venus para magtanong po ng susunod na tanong. Venus?
Hello, Dr. Defensor. Magandang hapon ho sa inyo.
Magandang hapon po.
Kagaya nga ho ng nabanggit ho ninyo kanina, no, isa ho sa mga pinaka-apektado kapag meron hong kalamidad ay ang mga kababaihan. Ngayon ho, kasama ko ang isa hong ina, isa hong may bahay, at isa rin hong leader ng mga internally displaced people sa Tacloban. Siya ho si Binibining Algina Lacaba at meron ho siyang katanungan para ho kay Senator Santiago.
Magandang hapon po sa lahat na nandito. Ako po si Algina Lacaba from San Jose, Tacloban City. Kilala po siguro ng buong tao dito kung nasaan yung Tacloban. Ngayon po ay nakatira na po kami sa relocation site ng Tacloban City sa Northern Barangay. Gusto ko lang po sana muna bago ako magtanong i-share kung anong nangyayari doon sa amin sa relocation sites. Okay, ngayon po mayroon na pong mga nabibilang na permanent houses doon at mga transitional houses. Ang problema namin doon is kaming mga kababaihan ay lalong bumibigat po yung mga trabaho namin dahil nga sa displacement na nangyari dahil sa typhoon na Yolanda. So, ang pinaka-main problem namin doon is yung tubig. Wala po kaming tubig doon sa norte. Bilang isa sa kababaihan na nagsusulong na sana din mawala yung mga issue ng women trafficking kasi pag gano'n, nadi-displace po yung mga kababaihan is, ang nangyayari po ay na-exploit or nagiging malayo sa access sa paghahanap buhay na kumbaga, nandun na lang sila sa bahay para gawin yung mga gawaing bahay. Hindi na sila nagkakaroon ng pagkakataon, hindi na kami nagkakaroon ng pagkakataon na magtrabaho para tumulong sa aming pamilya at pati din po ang nangyayari ay napaparami po yung mga anak dahil nandun na lang sa bahay. So, kasi yun po yung totoo nangyayari. Okay po. Para po kay Senador Miriam Defensor Santiago, narinig ko po kanina yung mga plano niya tungkol sa mga kababaihan. Yung tanong ko po is, babasahin ko po. Babasahin ko po muna. Ano po ang plano ni Senadora Miriam Defensor Santiago para masigurong na itataguyod at nagagawan ng tugon ng pangangailangan issue ng kababaihan sa disaster recovery? Kanina po yung na-mention ninyo pong bill ay napakaganda po. Pero siguro po, kaming kababaihan, lalo na po kaming nasa resettlement sites ay nagkakaroon assurance po na kung siya po yung mananalo bilang presidente, sana po siguruhin niya na may implement yung batas na gagawin niya. Kasi yung sinabi po ninyo kanina is maganda po yun. Yung implementation sana, yung gusto namin bilang isang kababaihan. Marami po tayong mga batas, pero sa tingin ko po, nasa ground po kami, yung implementation or monitoring po yung nagiging problema ng ating gobyerno. Si Senator Miriam Defensor Santiago, isa ko pong idolo. So, kung mananalo siya, so ano po kaya ang kanyang gagawin?
Alam mo, sa aming pamilya, si Senator Miriam lang ang politician. Kami lahat, we are professional workers. We are not interested in politics. Siguro siya lang ang intellectual na naging politiko. So wala sa dugo niya na pambobola. Kung hindi pwede, sasabihin niya rin. Kung pwede, sasabihin niya rin. Ganun ang personality namin na magkakapatid. Pero may pinopropose siya na more active role for women. Sang-ayon siya sa mga sinabi mo na in times of disaster, in times of calamities, ang mga babae talagang na-exploit sila. Kawawa sila. So sabi niya, bakit hindi tayo gumawa ng more proactive role for women na instead na sa bahay lang sila, dumadami ang pamilya. Kasi nasa bahay lang. Okay, sabi niya, bakit hindi tayo gumaya sa mga programa ng ibang bansa? Sabi niya, katulad sa Afghanistan. Siguro, I think you are aware that Afghanistan is a strife-torn country. But despite being strife-torn, this is what they did. For example, in the provinces of Balkh, Samangan, and Nengarhar, may binuo sila na tinatawag na grandmother committees. Yun ang ginawa nila. Ito ay binubuo ng mga lola na tinitingala ng komunidad. Sila ay tinuruan muna ng community-based health and first aid skills. Tinuruan din sila ng hygiene promotion, epidemic control, psychosocial support, and behavioral change activities. And then itong mga lola, ipinikalala sa provincial public health authorities. Ang mga grandmother committees, as soon as they were enabled, sila ngayon ang naghihikayat sa mga kababaihan na pumunta sa mga healthcare centers para magpatingin at mapagkonsulta sa doktor. Sila din ang kumakausap sa mga kalalakihan para hikayatin ang kanilang mga asawa o anak na pumunta sa mga healthcare centers. So, sila mismo, they empower themselves. So, siguro yan ang pagkukulang dito sa Philippines. Palagi tayo nagtatanong, anong gagawin ng opisina na ito? Doon din tayo, palagi lang tayo ganun, what will you do, what will you... Pero sila, they empower themselves, gumawa sila ng paraan, and Afghanistan is war-torn. It is a war-torn country. Pangalawa, sabi ni Senator Miriam, bigyan ng pantay na oportunidad ang mga babae na lumahok sa usapan ng disaster at recovery. Kasi usually, ang mga babae, sabihin, you stay there because you will take care of your child, ganun. Hindi sila pinaparticipate. Pero actually, sila nga ang nakakaalam kung paano nila isave ang kanilang pamilya. Actually, it's a wrong paradigm. May kasasabihan, sabi ni Senator Miriam, ito ang famous na saying, women are the anchor in communities. Kung kaya ang kababaihan ay dapat bigyan ng leadership roles sa komunidad. Sila ang may alam kung papaano kaagad tugunan ang pangangailangan ng mga matanda at mga bata tuwing may dilubyo, dahil karamihan ng kababaihan ay ang namamahala sa bahay. Hindi lang dapat bigyan ng training ang kababaihan, kundi isama sa pagbuo ng training manuals at first response teams. Kasi sila na first hand, alam nila kung ano kaagad ang gagawin. Isa pa, sabi ni Senator Miriam, maglaan ng budget para sa mga programang pangkababaihan at siguruhan na agaran itong mga maibigay. So, yun ang kanyang mga panukala para matulungan yung mga kababaihan. And then, sabi niya, finally, tungkol naman sa sexual exploitation at human trafficking, dapat madagdagan ang women's desk sa disaster areas. Dapat magkaroon din, she is proposing what we call in other countries as, in quotation marks, safe zones para sa mga kababaihan at kabataan kung saan siguradong protektado sila sa mga area na yun, na pag nag-enter sila sa safe zone, hindi sila pwede galawin. Kasama ng mga bata, matatanda at may kapansanan, ang kababaihan ang isa sa pinaka naaapektuhan ng kalamidad dahil madalas ay kulang ang mga programa at sistema upang matugunan ang kanilang mga tiyak na pangangailangan. Dapat lang na pagtutuunan sila ng pansin. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat, Nanay Algina Venus. Thank you. Maraming salamat, Dr. Defensor, for that very articulate. No, it's very, very precise. Siguro yung first na platform talaga na nakita ko na detailed pagdating sa kababaihan, lalo na pagdating sa disaster zones, di ba?
I think it helps kasi nga po, Senator Miriam, sabi niyo nga po, no, dumaan na po kasi siya sa tatlong hanay ng gobyerno, di ba? So, nakikita rin niya kung paano natin talagang isagawa yung mga programa na gusto niya po, na ipatupad talaga yung mga programa na ito. At sana po talaga, no, na kung ano man po yung nasabi natin, we will keep you accountable. We will keep Senator Miriam accountable sa mga sinabi niyo po nga po para sa PWDs, sa kababaihan. Napakaraming problema pa rin po talaga.
Napakaraming kailangan gawin.
Kailangan gawin, no? Oho. So, sa puntong ito, meron pa po ata tayong oras. So, may 5 minuto pa po tayo na baka nais niyo pong magbigay ng closing statement kaugnay po ng plataforma ni Senator Santiago sa disaster risk reduction and management or tungkol sa climate change, sa ecosystems, or kung ano man po.
This is her closing statement on disaster risk management and climate change adaptation platform. Republic Act Number 10121, also known as the Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Act of 2010, which Senator Miriam co-authored, paved the way for the creation of the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, or the NDRRMC. The NDRRMC, in contrast to its predecessor, the National Disaster Coordination Council, is multi-sectoral. It is composed of national agencies, local government leagues, private sector, civil society, faith-based organizations, academe, and basic sectors. RA number 10121 also signaled the paradigm shift to disaster risk reduction and management from traditional disaster management only. This means the NDRRMC is no longer concerned only with preparedness and response, but also with prevention and mitigation of the underlying factors of risk, including hazards, vulnerability, exposure, and capacity. RA number 10121 also paved the way for the creation of the Local Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Fund, which may be used for DRRM programs at the LGU level. The LDRRMF, or the fund, amounts to at least 5% of the LGU's estimated revenue from regular sources, 70% of which may be used for disaster risk prevention, mitigation, preparedness, recovery, and rehabilitation, and 30% of which may be used for quick response activities. However, this is what Senator Miriam has noticed. Reviews of the accomplishments and impacts of RA number 10121 show that much of the problem in DRRM implementation lies in weak disaster governance. The most glaring issue is the absence of a single focal authority for the implementation and oversight of DRRM. This has caused confusion in determining which agency or agencies should be responsible for implementing the 4 thematic areas of DRRM. What are the 4 thematic areas? Prevention, mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery and rehabilitation. And especially in large-scale disasters such as Typhoon Yolanda. Currently, it is the observation of Senator Miriam that the Office of Civil Defense, or OCD, acts as the main coordinator of DRRM implementation in the country, aside from its secretariat functions for the NDRRMC. The problem lies in the structure, manpower, and financial resources of the OCD, which is a bureau under the Department of National Defense. Clearly, its current structure and resources are insufficient to properly carry out DRRM in the Philippines. Therefore, there is an urgent need to streamline disaster risk governance through institutional change so as to clarify the mandate and accountability of government agencies for DRRM. Senator Miriam says this, and I quote, "If I become president, I will lead the creation of an independent DRRM agency to enhance the capacity of government and communities to prevent, mitigate, prepare for, respond to, and recover from the impact of disasters. An independent DRRM agency has to have the following core characteristics. A, functional and responsive organizational structure which combines climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction functions. B, ability to coordinate and augment implementation of DRRM programs. C, capacity for knowledge management of DRRM database, including disaggregated risk information. D, adequate manpower and institutionalized processes sufficient to prepare for and respond to large-scale disasters. E, sufficient financial and capital resources. F, administrative independence with respect to hiring and other personal actions. And G, authority to administer the DRRM funds and implement emergency procurement for effective disaster preparedness and timely disaster response and early recovery. Senator Miriam also says that if elected president, she shall appoint a cabinet-level official as head of the independent DRRM agency to ensure that this official has the requisite authority to orchestrate the different actors, policies, and programs involved in DRRM. The independent DRRM agency must at least have a bureau to coordinate climate change adaptation, disaster prevention and mitigation, and disaster recovery and rehabilitation programs, and another bureau that handles preparedness and emergency management. DRRM implementation also needs to interface with the private finance sector, particularly the insurance industry, to enable a functional risk financing mechanism for disasters. In fact, she said she filed a bill to this effect as early as the 14th Congress. Unfortunately, this bill has languished at the committee level. Last June, rinifile na naman ni Senator Santiago ang Senate Bill number 2561, which seeks to create a national flood insurance program. Sabi niya, dapat may insurance program para pag binabaha, may ano man lamang, may konsuelo. This bill may be expanded to include other extreme events and national hazards besides floods. To end her platform, because the guide is already signaling time is up. May I just say that Senator Miriam thanks all of you here today. May I quote her? I thank all of you here today for advocating for and contributing to efficient and effective disaster risk governance through your active participation both in policy and in action. Maraming salamat po sa pag-invite kay Senadora Miriam Defensor Santiago.
At muli, maraming salamat po, Dr. Miriam
Tinanong ko
Defensor.
siya, ano ang last sentence mo sa kanila? Sabi niya, I'll dub you 100 times a day.
Yun.
Okay.
Maraming salamat
Maraming salamat po, ma'am.
Maraming salamat